Today's episode is all about generation differences in communication. And who better to talk about this than a mother-daughter duo in the communication coaching industry. So today you get to listen in on a conversation with Hava Horowitz and Laurie Schloff. So these two women are powerhouses in different ways, doing something similar to what I do, but I always enjoy listening to how people approach the communication challenges of today and what they see in the wild. I think you'll find it to be an interesting conversation as well, so stay tuned. Hi, I'm Karin Reed. I'm a 4-time author, Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist, and communication expert on helping people to own the room, whether it be a physical one or a virtual one. Welcome to Speaker Dynamics. I am so excited for this conversation because, Laurie, you and I have known each other for quite a while. And I actually did not realize that Hava, your daughter, was somebody who worked with you, which, a mother-daughter duo in any industry is unusual. I think it's very unusual in the coaching industry as well. So I'm going to let you two explain how this happened. So, Laurie, why don't you kick it off, and then Hava, you can pile on.
Okay. Well, for me, it was all a delight. Hava has always been very clear about her path at any given moment, and she'll tell you about different things that she did. She always was really into communication. She was really into being sort of on. I call her sort of alternative and spiritual. She might use different terms. And she also wanted to learn the kinds of tools that you and I work with, sort of more nuts and bolts, maybe corporate. And so I was just delighted. And it's kind of happened slowly and organically. We've done some gigs together and some things we do on our own too.
Yeah. So Hava, how did you come to this place where you're like, I want to work with my mom? How did that happen?
Yeah. So before entering into coaching, I was running a startup where we developed the first plant-based multivitamin and the first fully compostable pill bottle. And while I was running that business, I was like, okay, I can do the supply chain operations. I can do the inventory management. I can manage our e-commerce platform. Is it my soul's greatest calling or gift? Absolutely not. What I saw that I really was successful in and felt truly aligned with my passion was telling the story, both of myself as a founder, but also the story of the business. And especially at an early stage of a startup, investors are not investing in the revenue goals you haven't met yet, or the KPIs you haven't met yet. They're investing in your capacity to share your story. And I started to think, why am I good at this? Okay, my background in acting, and also, does it have something to do with the fact that my mother has been a communication coach for the last 40 years? And I ended up, after some time, realizing that this wasn't fully my path to be the CEO of this startup, and so myopically focused on building this business. Ended up selling my shares in the company. We had some personal tragedy happened, actually. My father and Laurie's husband passed away very suddenly. I was in this sort of dark night of the soul of like, what do I do now? I don't have my business. That was my baby. I actually had also ended a romantic relationship. My father just passed away. What's life? Where am I going next? And I remember very clearly being at dinner one night with Laurie and like looking at her in a new way and being a second. I think that this woman has something to teach me in terms of where to go next. And she ends up taking me under her wing and sharing all of her hard-earned wisdom with me and giving me a couple of very junior clients. And it was just an immediate click, when something just feels easy, when something feels aligned.
So amazing, Hava. And I have to say, I always think about how I have the least credibility in my own home. Kids, like when they were, applying for college, it wasn't me that they asked to look over their essays. It was my sister.
Mm.
Like, and she's developmental editor, so like that made sense. But like, I never saw their essays because they.
Really?
And then my one son actually spoke at his graduation, and I didn't realize he was doing it until we showed up at graduation.
Amazing.
And I'm like,
No
you
way.
think I could have possibly helped you with this? Like, you did amazing. But like this, this is what I do for a living. But
Right,
so I think it's awesome that you looked at her. You're like, what is it that you do, Indiana? Yeah, I think that this might be interesting to me. So, hey, who knows? Maybe they will come around. I actually do know somebody who is not in the coaching industry, but has their own management consulting practice. And she said, I birthed my successor. I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. I wish I had done that. That would be really cool. But I think it's like, what's it like whenever you two do you get the clients that come in together and you decide who takes which, or like, how do you divvy that up? I'm just curious.
Oh, as I said, some things we do together and some are separate, but we do have different approaches.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And I think we've learned a lot from each other. So I would say, and again, it has to do with what was expected of me in the corporate world.
Yes.
I'm a bit more nuts and bolts, get it done. I'm a little bit more outside in, and Hava, you can comment on this. I think Hava has brought to me, and certainly brings to her clients, a holistic, inside out approach to your presence. Hava, you can.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what that looks like. So Hava, when she says that you're more inside out, how does that play out?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of focus on personal, internal exploration and how some of our habits related to presence and communication are actually rooted in stories we had about life, about how to survive, and I do a lot of that kind of work. For instance, I'm under 5 feet tall, and I learned from a very early age that in order to get noticed in the world, I'd have to make myself really big and really loud and really expressive. Otherwise, oh no, will I be seen in this world?
Yeah.
And so I believe that all of our presence habits, our presence patterns are often survival strategies. And the work can be really deep and personal. I also do a lot of work with personal storytelling and understanding what were the key moments in our lives where our personal and leadership values are forged, and how do we reflect those values in the way that we communicate and show up in a work environment.
Yeah, that's always so interesting. Laurie, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, Karin, I was going to say, so like something just came in today, and the prospective client was kind enough to list the specific things he wanted a small team to work on. And one of the things was storytelling. So I immediately thought of Hava. And then one of the things was how to run an engaging meeting. I immediately thought of myself.
Exactly, right. So you have like your areas of expertise where it's very easy to be like, this is my thing. This is your thing.
But then we learn from each other. Like one specific thing I've learned from Hava that maybe I was shy about doing, again, with thinking I had to be more formal, was how to get people focused and engaged right at the beginning through some sort of exercise that involved relaxing, focusing, maybe visualizing, mindfulness. And so I'm excited about doing that because it seems and I've been in this business decades, and I've just started doing this with her influence more so in the past few years. So that's exciting.
Yeah, so fun. I mean, I love learning new approaches. I love hearing other people approach things differently than I would because, I know how I do things, but it's not like I have a lot of time to sit down and study what other people do. But if it's, it's right in front of you and you can see how it all kind of blossoms. So I'm a little jealous, I have to say. I wish I had a Hava in my life. That's amazing.
I know.
I have a luxury of like decades of hard-won wisdom that I just got to drink out of a fire hose. Yeah. And I think Laurie, just the wealth of experience she has brings that evidence-based, research-backed research-backed approach that can be ported to so many different kinds of clients. And maybe I take a more like individualistic approach. And I've had the opportunity to incorporate all of the different frameworks and the wealth of research that Laurie has shared with me related to communication best practices, but pairing that with authentic sense of self and style.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about some generational differences that might arise. So we have 3 different generations.
Yeah, I think that's so cool.
It is so fun. It really is. And I'm just wondering if there is ever a generation gap between you two in how you communicate.
One thing, I think I can frustrate Hava, though she's dealt with it pretty well. Just like, and we've always used this phrase. It's the technological stuff to me, not to you, Karin, because I think you're very sophisticated, is not intuitive, and I get very stressed out.
Yeah, understood.
And Hava was once in a situation where someone was trying to teach me something. Someone else was trying to teach me something, and I was in a panic attack, and she teases me. I think that's really one of the best ways when you're working with someone and there's tension is teasing or humor.
Yeah. Oh.
And she's pretty good at that.
Totally agree. Yeah. And I will say, I mean, even though thank you for saying that I'm advanced. I think I Google a lot. And I also have people who I can call and be like, tell me how to do this. So that is very, very helpful. But I think we're all kind of, as you were saying, Hava, drinking from a fire hose in terms of just the technological changes across the board, but even in our business, as we try to figure out how does AI fit in with what we do and all of the opportunities, but also the potential pitfalls, for how we interact with our clients and even just the appetite that clients have with using AI or not using AI,
yes.
Safeguards around it. I mean, that's what I really encountered. And actually, I'm going to be a little bit more pointed in my question with that in mind. So, with using AI within our industry, Hava, do you find that you can present it as more of an opportunity to your clients because of you being a millennial versus me being Gen X, or even your mom being,
Boomer,
in the generation above that? Yeah. I mean, do you feel like you have an easier time kind of wrapping your head around it and also conveying that to your clients, or what are you seeing relative to AI with your clientele?
I use zero AI. I don't. That's not the business I'm in, right? I'm not in the business of outsourcing our communication to technology. I'm in the business of insourcing who we are to ourselves and doing deeper listening to self.
Yeah.
I will say, as an artist and also as a coach, I'm really interested in how the impact that AI will have on art and on communication, because right now it's so easy to put in a half-baked idea into ChatGPT and get this perfect 6-paragraph essay output. I'm really curious about the role that imperfection and rawness and roughness, how that is going to become so much more valued. And I'll just share a very short story. I have a friend who was a professor at Harvard, and he was telling me, you know what my favorite thing is nowadays? A shitty essay. It's like, I love it when I get a shitty essay. It means that students are actually using their brains. And of course, we don't want students to produce shitty work. But how do we actually, when it's so easy to put in a half-baked idea and get out a fully fledged thesis statement, how do we encourage the hard work and the labor it takes to actually think for ourselves and embrace the imperfections that come with that?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great story. I'm glad you shared that, because it is true. I mean, what we think is perfect can be devoid of individuality and authenticity. And, I think we probably all share the same belief that the best communicators are steeped in authenticity. And if you outsource that, where does that leave us? So yeah, it is interesting. I do have some clients though who are like, so what are you using AI for? And we want that. And I'm like, interesting. And then I have others who are like, don't you dare use AI, because I'm not coming to you because I want you to give me what everyone else can get. I'm coming to you because I want something that's very customized and special to me. I'm definitely seeing things across the spectrum, but that is interesting. I love that it came from your mouth too, Hava, and not from my mouth or from Laurie's mouth. I'm like, okay, younger generation, what are they thinking? So that's very cool. Can we talk a little bit about changes though in what good looks like from a communication standpoint? Because, I began in TV news, and, as I was a young person, it was the Tom Brokaws of the world, or, the Peter Jennings of the world, or the, not so much Barbara Walters, but, I was a little bit after that, but people who were very formal in how they presented. And that was the gold standard. But even within the TV news construct, there is less formality today than there was back then. And I would guess, I would hypothesize, that there's been a shift from perfection to authenticity being favored, over, the one over the other. Do you feel like that is something you were seeing in your practice? Laurie, you start first.
Right. I am challenged by this, and I actually get kind of worked up over it. And I'll tell you my concern, and you can tell me, if this hits you right. I'm concerned, number one, about what the hell is authenticity.
True.
Because one of my quotes, I have, all sorts of quotes. People can't see your intellect, your character, or your soul. They only go by what you say, how you sound, and how you come across visually. So what is it? I like one of my colleagues said, it's showing your values. But in a nutshell, my goal as a coach is to help people to feel and be authentic, however they define that. And Hava, I think, could do better with the definition, and to use best practices. In other words, what am I concerned about? When someone's kind of acts like they will wing it, I'd rather have them do what I call planned spontaneity, have a few bullets.
Yeah, so don't just go into it and think, well, I'm sure I'll come up with something brilliant on the fly because that's my authentic self coming through. Yes.
Look,
I think there's a difference between authenticity and sloppiness. Or being a slacker.
I'm confused about that. So Hava, I get emotional about authenticity because I'm concerned it'll go in a wrong direction, but preach.
I don't know. I mean, there's a researcher I love from NYU. Her name's Susie Welch, and she's done a lot of work related to generational differences of communication and researching what are the values that Gen X has versus millennials versus Gen Z. And she has found that Gen Z cares a lot more about self-expression and self-care than they do about career ambition or teamwork or power or status, all of this. Mm-hmm. And I think that has really a strong impact on what does it mean to be a communication coach? Because I think the way Laurie and I have approached it is best practices paired with authentic sense of self. Mm. And I think the authentic sense of self feels so much more palatable to a Gen Z audience than
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, because it used to be you to fit into a certain mold. So I'm thinking about a client. I came in as a new communication coach after they had the same one for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And that communication coach believed, for example, that you don't use any gestures, that you keep your arms cemented to your sides because any gestures would be distracting from your talk track. And the first time I did a workshop for them, every person had their hands cemented to their thighs, and maybe periodically, they go like this with their hands. like they were like
flap.
flippers because they were like, they wanted to do something so badly with their bodies. And finally at the end, I was like, guys, like, what is the deal? Why are you standing like that? And they said, well, that's the ready position. And I said, ready for what? So confusing to me. But, in this person's mind, you had one way of presenting.
Right.
And, even there was another situation where I came in and their previous communication coach would take a super soaker and spray them if they said I know, can you believe it? It blows my mind. Or an or did something that was perceived as wrong. And I say that in quotes. And I thought, okay, how scarring is that? But also there's so much variance in what good looks like that how could you say this is right, this is wrong? There are certain things obviously that are wrong. If you like put your hand in your pocket and you're playing with your keys, like you're making noise, that's wrong. But there's just so much along the trajectory on that continuum that can work depending upon who is the person standing up in front of the room, that I thought it was very strange. But I do feel, Laurie, that giving people the flexibility to exercise their authenticity within certain guardrails is the approach that I espouse. Would you agree with that, Laurie? I'm going to have you.
Absolutely. Why is my voice sounding like that?
You're like, absolutely, but.
Well, no, in other words, okay, I think it's like any other craft in a way, like doctors learn certain best practices and then a good physician blends it with what works for them, but still keeping in mind the fundamentals.
Yeah. Absolutely. So have you had, you say you've been doing this for decades. Have you had to change the way you teach the best practices as a result of this kind of shift towards authenticity? Or have you always had that been like the core of what you teach?
I think most things have stayed the same. I think maybe my approach to my clients has flourished because I'm able to flex maybe more than I needed to way back when.
Yeah.
So flexing to what's going to be most comfortable to them and letting them know exactly what I just told you. Yeah. Our goal is let's learn the essentials. Let's learn the 4 levels of gestures. I believe in them. And then let's adapt them to your own style as an example.
Yeah. No, thank you for that example. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Put that into a lifelike framework. Yeah. So what about you, Hava? Have you changed your approach, over the time that you've been doing this based upon the shift towards more authenticity or, incorporating more of what your mom has been doing, which is, perhaps a more structured approach?
I think something that I'm finding valuable nowadays is letting my clients define for themselves what good means.
Okay.
Whether that's who's a speaker that you really admire, who's a person on your team that whenever they speak, you find yourself lighting up and leaning in. What are the qualities that they have? And I like to work with a framework called Zig and Zag. So let's say you're a data scientist. There are certain qualities that all data scientists need. Those are the Zigs. Like all data scientists need to be clear. They need to be precise. They need to use quantitative information. Those are the Zigs. And then what do you want your Zags to be? Like what are the things that not all data scientists have that are uniquely yours? Maybe you want to be humorous. Not all data scientists are humorous. Maybe you want to be approachable. So identifying your own Zigs and Zags rather than me, Hava, the communication coach that you've hired, being prescriptive about what they are. And then, of course, incorporating the best practices to support those goals.
Yeah. So rather than saying, hey, start with a joke. Don't start with a joke if you're not funny.
Exactly. And
it's been so interesting just to hear of other people's ways of approaching this for sure. This is going by really, really fast. Yeah. But I do want to make sure that I ask you the final question. Each of you, I would like you to, respond. And it's, what is, one big takeaway for our audience that they can kind of chew on until the next episode. So we'll go with the wisdom first.
Okay, the wisdom and then the...
Which I'm going to, both of you have it, but Laurie, you've had more time to accumulate it, so you get
the
to
wisdom
go first.
And the new wisdom. Well, I'd say just on the same topic is get a sense of what feels right to you, what you admire, as Hava said, and then, and this goes for all of us, even people who've been in the business for decades, keep growing. What do you need to keep working on? So let's say in my case, and Hava will vouch for this, I'm still terrible with a stressful moment. Still terrible. I don't like conflict. I don't like stress. I don't like tech breaking down, and I'm working hard on that. Yeah. So how do I communicate when I'm under stress? And that's after many decades of being in the business. So know yourself, appreciate that, but get beyond your comfort zone. Keep growing as a presenter, communicator.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Laurie. All right, Hava, what's the one thing you're going to leave our listeners and viewers with?
Man, I mean, I resonate a lot with what Laurie just said around taking a strengths-based approach. Like, what am I good at? What do I already excel at? What do I already have within me? And magnifying that and just continuing to polish your own diamond. But in the spirit of generational differences and thinking about this conversation, I was thinking about the word cringe that comes up a lot in
It's true.
Seeming cringe. And I'm not exactly sure what my positioning is on this, but I think the fear of being cringe often gets in the way of us actually expressing ourselves strongly and taking a stance and sticking out. And I think it's funny because in a world where more of us have the opportunity to make podcasts or record ourselves and distribute it to the masses than ever, like there's also this fear of being cringe. And the more that we can reveal ourselves to the world, the more that we can get what we really want out of life, I think.
Yeah. I love that. And I always think about how my job is to get the brilliance of people's heads out into the world for all of us to enjoy.
Which you did a good job today.
Well, thank you. Seriously, half an hour was definitely not enough time. And I want to just continue the conversation, but I can't because I make a promise to our listeners. But thank you, both of you, for taking the time to talk to me. This is a rare treat to be able to talk to fellow practitioners. So I really appreciate it. I wish you much success with your business and one person at a time, right? We'll all improve the communication that we have in this world.
Which we need to do.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. One of the questions that I am frequently asked, and also Hava and Laurie are frequently asked, is who do you think is a really great communicator? Somebody who you really look up to. And I wanted to know their answers to that question. So for this week's bonus content, you find out. So if you want to learn who they think are excellent communicators and people that they hold in high esteem for their communication prowess, you can go to speakerdynamics.com/bonus content. Once again, it's speakerdynamics.com/bonus content. And you will find out who Hava thinks is an amazing communicator, who Laurie thinks is an amazing communicator, and then I share who I think is an amazing communicator. So check it out and see if you're surprised by our answers. I want to thank all of you for listening to this podcast talking all about generation gaps in communication. We have so much more to share with you in the weeks ahead, so I hope you'll continue to tune in. And if you are finding these episodes to be valuable, please spread the word. Let's help other people to find us so that we can elevate the communication skill set of everyone in our spheres of influence. Until next time, everybody.